All right, so as promised, film breakdown on Hakeem Butler. Just some news and notes before we get into today's videos, guys. This was the Iowa State-Iowa game. Big game, lots of big names you guys will recognize. Michael Ajanudu was the corner there. Tight ends were Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson for Iowa. Tristan Wirfs was the right tackle on Iowa. You got Nate Stanley at quarterback for Iowa. A.J. Epineza was on that Iowa team. And then some familiar names that you guys will see when it comes to Iowa State will be David Montgomery, Julian Good-Jones, who's been with the Eagles before, Matt Leo, and then DeAndre Payne. Those are all some kind of familiar names that made their way into the NFL a little bit. So without further ado, guys, let's get it. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel. The sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it is you get around to watching us. Once again, guys, my name is Steven Hyder, and this is Gate City Sports Channel. All right, y'all, today's topic. Look, the Eagles made a signing for a guy named Hakeem Butler, right? Hakeem Butler was a guy out of the 2019 draft, big physical, kind of boundary side receiver that has a little Alshon to his game, just like JJ. He's a guy that has played the flanker as well. He's one of these guys with a really big catch radius, but it takes him some time to get up to speed. We're going to talk about him today, guys. We're going to talk about not only the Eagles signing this guy, but the Eagles signed this guy with the intention of classifying him as a tight end. Could that just be a trick for the roster? Maybe. But nonetheless, they're classifying him as a tight end, which a lot of us wanted them to do with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, but instead they're doing with Hakeem Butler. Like I said, guys, one of the first things that's going to stand out about this kid is going to be the physicality in which he plays with. I will say this, the very first clip I'm going to show you, Hakeem Butler, his athleticism in terms of the physicality, it doesn't always show up on film, okay? And I'll give you an example of that real quick.
Coordinator a year ago. Why not give it to Montgomery? He will break tackle after tackle.
You can see there, he's a little, slow to get to the block, not giving a full effort there. His man kind of gets into the gap and shuts down the running play as a result. Not the best effort. Also, though, it's not the best way of judging his effort on blocking plays per se, or his physicality in general, because I can show you other highlights and other clips from the same game to where I'll show you one real quick where he really, really got after it.
Michigan State. There's Crony.
You can see him getting really physical with the corner there, guys. I mean, he's pushing that corner back. He's making a statement about, I'm going to move you, and I'm going to move you with some force there. So, it doesn't always translate with effort per se when it comes to run blocking, but he does possess the physical traits, and you can find examples on film of him doing a decent job. So, I mean, inconsistency is probably what I would say about this young man when it comes to his efforts there. Now, I'll get you a little excited. What I will say about this kid is he does have a shocking resemblance at times to Alshon Jeffrey. He's not the same talent level, guys. Don't confuse that. But just the way that he kind of makes those vertical catches. This was a kid that was averaging like 20-some yards a catch in like 2018, guys. I mean, he was killing it. He's not a fast guy. I mean, this guy takes a long time to get up to speed. But once he reaches that speed, he can get vertical on you because of his body size. That 6'5", 225-pound frame, he can physically move guys. He can physically box guys out. And he uses that big frame to make catches. And I'll give you a little example of that on a, kind of a down-the-field play. This wasn't against Iowa, but nonetheless, I know it existed, so I'll show it to you.
Nolan with time. Floats it up there.
All right, calm down, guys. Just one catch, one play. Don't get too excited here.
6'6", Hakeem Butler.
You can see, I mean, he's got the physical gifts here, guys. Like, I don't know that we'll see him used in that way necessarily with the Eagles. I mean, who knows? But definitely, you'll see that they use him as a boundary side receiver. They will split him out as a flanker. Like, they move him in as a slot. Like, the guy bounces around the formation a little bit. At least he did it at Iowa State. So there is some big playability to this kid. It's just not speed-based, right? It's pure brute size and strength. And I will admit, some guys like that will struggle at the NFL level to translate. I'm hoping that this one is just a a slight, not slaw, a slight adjustment, basically, in his route running, teaching him some finer details about playing NFL corners, basically. That's what the hope is here. So, where I think that it gets a little more confusing with this young man, guys, he's not the greatest on timing routes, okay? If you're looking at a guy that's going to play your boundary side X receiver, right, just think Alshon Jeffrey. The one thing Alshon Jeffrey is good for is that he's not the most precise route runner, right? He's not going to separate with crazy route running, but he runs a good enough route to use his body positioning to box you out on in routes, out routes, comebacks, right? Those possession and timing things, right? The things you need to be a good third down conversion target, per se. I do think that there are moments on film where you look at a kid like Hakeem Butler and you're like, oh man, you know, if you took the time to honestly develop this young man, maybe he could give you something like that. Maybe he could be that guy that becomes a conversion kind of target on third downs, right? Like a true boundary side X aligned receiver.
Struggling. Kempt, a little curl pattern. They finally get Hakeem Butler.
You guys know I told you. I think playing the boundary side is the toughest. It's the toughest assignment for wide receivers. The windows are shorter. The catches are contested more often. It's a harder position to play than when you can operate with more space on the field side, okay? Now, I'll give you an example of Hakeem Butler, who I thought made a good play on the football. I mean, this was a solid play from a young man on the football, and I'll show you that real quick.
Nolan will throw it here. Pulled in. Butler makes a man miss.
Okay, so the problem is when you look at things like slant routes, right? When we look at things like an out route, he doesn't always live up to it, guys. His route running is not very good. His body positioning can be wanting sometimes as well. And if you're a big guy who's not particularly fast and who's not particularly good at running routes, well, you better be able to position your body and use that expansive wingspan, right, to get the football. And the problem is when I look at timing routes, in particular timing routes, it doesn't always show up. It doesn't always translate to the film with this young man. So that would be my concern here is I'm projecting what he'll be. You got to be better than this.
Delay blitz. Out pattern. Incomplete.
So, long-term prospects of this young man. Okay, I've given you some film here, right? Showed you a little bit. I'll give you some perspective on him. What do I think this young man is? I think this is a young man that, with the right coaching, and he's going to need coaching, guys, he could develop into something, okay? I'm a little curious of why the Eagles want to play him as a tight end. I don't look at this young man and think that, like, I know some of the comps were immediately Chase Claypool, but I didn't necessarily see that right off the bat. That's not something that I would have necessarily jumped to that fast with this young man. Although he plays with a physicality in his game. I'm interested to see what the Eagles do here with putting him as tight end. Is that just smoke and mirrors? Is that just the way of fitting him on the roster? And he's really just going to be more so like a guy that, maybe you move Ertz to the F back, the F tight end positioning, right? When you're in 12-man, and maybe Hakeem Butler comes out and plays that kind of boundary side, almost like X receiver. It's really the Y. It's that Y slot, that Y tight end positioning. Maybe that's what they use him for, and they change up the roles a little bit. I don't know, guys. But I can say that he does have some development that has to come from his route running, right? He's not particularly fluid. He's more fluid than JJ. I will tell you that. If you guys go look at his NFL Combine numbers and his Pro Day numbers, and you compare it to JJ, he's got a better athletic profile.
Is 6'6". I'm the biggest. I'm going to run good. And
he was better at things like the 20-yard shuttle. He was better at the 3-cone drill. I mean, he showed more agility than JJ did. With that said, he's not exactly like the most agile guy on film. Doesn't do exactly the greatest job of sinking his hips to create separation in his route stems. He's not running past anybody, guys. But look, big catch radius. Alshon doesn't do those things either, and Alshon made a living in the NFL. So it's really about the catch radius, and can he learn some subtle things about route running? That's going to be the ticket to this young man. And then it's going to come down to like the scheme and, positioning, alignment. Where are they going to play this guy? Are they really going to put him out there as a 12-man, like kind of tight end / wide receiver hybrid? And look, just to be clear, guys, like it's not like he's the only player the Eagles have ever experimented like this. I mean, we know that there are other examples to where we've done this with tight end receiver type players before. Like this is something the Eagles like to do. We'll see how it turns out, guys. I mean, I don't want to overhype people here. I don't want people getting too hyped up. I mean, this is a project. But I can tell you, like, I see what they see in this kid. This kid's got an impressive, like, kind of catch radius. But there's definitely some areas this kid needs to work on. Like, he's far from what I would call a polished product at this stage in his career. These are my thoughts on the other guys, but you already know I want to know what do you guys think about this young man? Tell me what you think. I mean, where do you guys think about the prospects of him being a tight end, receiver, hybrid type? What do you guys think about this young man developing? Do you buy into it? Do you think this is a guy that maybe down the road that can develop? Do you think that this might be a bad sign for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, the fact that they went out and kind of got a guy, they're classifying him as a tight end, but I mean, let's be real. There's some similarity here. I mean, I don't think he was as good as a contested catch specialist in college as J.J. was. And I thought J.J. showed a little more diverse route tree than he did in college. But we'll see. I mean, all you can do is just ride with it, guys, and see if this guy can make the best of an opportunity. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here. You know how we end these videos. We do a little E-A-G-L-E-S. Hey, guys, if you don't know, new podcast episode is available for the Battle Birds podcast. You can catch us on iTunes. You can catch us on Stitcher, Spotify, any of those platforms, guys. Look up the Battle Birds podcast. You'll see it. We talk about what's happening on this roster, and then we talk about the game with San Francisco, y'all. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here. Bye.